So why should I tell other people about my goals?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. One, you never know who you're talking to, right? So like with your podcast, meet someone here at school. Maybe they have their own podcast, so they're trying to work on it. There's always resources around you don't know about. On top of that, it's almost like an affirmation. If you wake up every morning and you talk about something you really want to do with somebody, just that is a step closer, and it kind of makes it more real if you're constantly thinking about it and constantly striving to make it better. At least that's my take.
Mm. What do you think? I agree. I think where I'm kind of thinking of like is sometimes we fall into that trap of like we talk about it and we don't do it. Like I was talking to my brother the other day and we were talking about how this is a big one with the gym, right? It's like when you want to get into shape, you always tell everybody that you're getting into shape, but then you don't actually do it, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about how like ever since we started going to the gym more often, we actually tell less people that we go to the gym.
Yeah,
and I think that's prevalent for you because you've been telling me for like a year and a half, hey Nick, I'm on the cut, and you're still telling me, hey Nick, I'm cutting.
Yeah, you would think that if you didn't know me and you heard that I used to be obese, but I was actually just the same weight a year ago.
You're not obese now. You're not even obese.
No, but I just mean in the sense where like,
like it seems like you've come so far down.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
But the reality is, like I talk about it a lot. I joke around that I've been on a dirty bulk for 21 years.
Right. You made a joke that you had a lot of gut 5 minutes ago.
Exactly. And like, I'm lucky enough that, while obviously my fitness impacts my confidence like anyone else, my confidence is mostly away from that. And I'm really lucky in that sense. But I do think, one pro and one con of talking about, your goals and what you want, your ambitions is, if I go and tell you that I'm going on a cut and then we go out to eat, maybe you might say like, oh, let's get the salad, right? Or something. And then I'll be, oh, okay, yeah, smart, right? Or, I know that, peer opinion is a really strong thing, particularly when it comes to like thinking about, just, am I doing what I've said that I'm going to do?
Holding you accountable.
Exactly. But the con of that is you can very easily get trapped in, like, I've been telling you it for so long, right? That at some point it's like, okay, Jack, like, sure, right? And then I think the biggest con is when you're telling other people you're going to do this for your own comfort instead of necessarily like you really wanting to do it.
Mm.
Like if I go around telling people like, yeah, I'm on the cut, blah, it makes me feel better because I'm thinking, oh, these people think that I'm like trying to lose weight, whatever, even if it's not conscious.
It's the dopamine hit before actually doing it.
Exactly.
Right? You get the dopamine hit because you say you're doing this thing that you're not actually doing.
Cheating the system a
you're
little
cheating,
bit.
Totally cheating the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a balance that is hard to find of like telling people that you're doing this thing because if you're thinking about it all the time, you're more likely to do it. And maybe they have resources for you. Maybe they'll hold you accountable. But then also not just telling it for dopamine hits.
Yeah.
Can be difficult.
Exactly. That's why I mean, like, you would think that with weight loss is something where, oh, well, everyone can tell whether you've kind of lost weight or not, depending on how much weight you want to lose. But it definitely is one of those dopamine things where it's like, because of, American culture, just the culture around us, like, if I'm trying to lose weight, people do occasionally look upon me more fondly, whether I've actually achieved it or not,
Do you think, have you ever thought about like setting up like barriers of like, okay, if I don't do this, I get a consequence? Or like if I do this, I get a reward? Have you ever tried that?
I think that's where other people holding you accountable is really valuable. Like think about screen time on your phone, right? Like if you know the password, maybe it'll work the first day when you're really on it.
I just hit ignore for today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You type in your code, you do it. So, with my roommate, Luca, who obviously, I created his screen time password. So
he can't get in.
He can't get in. And I've been very strict with him about like, giving him it.
Yeah.
And that's me holding him accountable. And that helps him. And sure, like sometimes it sucks for him, I'm sure. All he wants to do is just hang out, chill. But it pushes him to be a better person. And I think that that's really powerful when it comes to telling people about your goals. When you take actionable steps like setting up barriers and stuff, where it's like, if I say, hey, if I don't lose 10 pounds by the end of the quarter, I
give me $100.
Yeah, give me $100 or take $100 from me, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I just do that myself, sure, like it might happen. But if you have somebody else that's watching you do it, holding you accountable, the chances of it happening are much higher. At least in my experience.
No, I agree. I think the big thing there too is like telling other people, but with a purpose. Like Lucas telling you that he's going to use less screen time with the purpose of you're going to help him. He's not just telling you that to tell you that.
Exactly.
I think I went through that with the tattoo before I got it a lot, where I told everyone for like a year and a half, I was telling everyone, dude, I'm getting a tattoo. I'm thinking about this. Look at
I
this.
remember. Yeah,
I was probably telling you in the dorms, wasn't I?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to get this tattoo. And then finally, when I stopped telling people, I actually got it.
And it looks good.
Oh, thank you. So it's a balance.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you think about in terms of reaching your goals. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot is like using short-term negatives to reach long-term positives.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is like doing the right thing for the wrong reason. So for example, let's say you want to get in shape, right? You want to lose weight. The healthy reason to lose weight is so that you look good, you live longer, and maybe you feel like you look a little better, right?
Yeah.
The unhealthy reason to lose weight is, oh, this guy who I know who I don't really like is in better shape than me, and I want to be better than him.
Yeah.
Or the unhealthy reason is I want to look really good, so I have a six-pack abs and all the girls love me.
Yeah.
Right? Or like all these other reasons. And I feel like the short-term ones are way more desirable.
Certainly.
So much more, right? And I think for me, at least when I'm thinking back on like why I got into the gym, of like I feel like I actually kind of used the short-term stuff that got me in the gym and got the habit, and then I jumped off the boat before I got like too unhealthy.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember one of the longest patch that like really got me in the gym was going with you and Spencer.
I remember that.
And I think part of the reason I was really going all the time was it was half accountability, like you were saying, of like, okay, these guys are going, they're asking me if I want to go all the time. So I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
I think part of it too was like, I was like, fuck, Spencer lifts more than me. That cannot stay.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, but that's not like a healthy thing to have, right? I shouldn't be comparing myself to him all the time because that's, there's a bajillion guys in the gym who lift more than me and will forever lift more than me. But then once they got the habit, I was like, oh, I don't really care anymore. I'm going to go because I know it's good for me and whatever mental health stuff, right?
Yeah. I think off of that, there's like the key word in being like competitively in a healthy way is like healthy for sure. Like with Spencer, you guys both got into the gym around the same time. We were all lifting buddies, like we're comparing, but it's not really like there's a difference between comparing or not comparing. There's a difference between competing and comparing for sure. You were competing with Spencer. I remember like going, we would go and bench and, you each would try each other's max.
I would count how many he's doing and then do one more.
Exactly. And it pushes you, to perform better for sure. But comparing it, I think is really the dangerous one. Like if you're comparing yourself to them, you can have competition without comparison. You look at him, you see what he's doing, you're like, I want to do better than that. It's different than saying, I can't do that.
Yeah. I guess the thought process is like, do you think I can chase goals for the wrong reason to start and then switch to the right reason at the right time? For example, like I'll give you another weird one, right? Let's say podcast, right? Let's say I started this podcast only because I wanted to make as much money as possible.
Yeah.
That's not a good reason to have a podcast, but that could be it. But that's actually, for some people, it's more likely to get them going, right? If I were to tell you, Jack, do you want to start a podcast? You can make $10,000 a month. I don't make $10,000 a month, by the way. You make $10,000 a month, right? You'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm in. And you do it.
Yeah.
And then eventually you kind of start to like fall in love with it, hopefully. And then you're like, oh, I'm not actually even doing this for the money anymore. I'm doing this for this, right? But I feel like if I told you, hey, do you want to start a podcast because for the love of it? You'd be like, no, I'm good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've just been toying with that in my head recently of like, can I use the wrong reason to actually get me going?
I think it's a little bit of gambling.
It definitely is.
Like I have a key example that comes to mind. My cousin is really involved in the startup world. And she's explained to me that there's a very obvious difference when a startup is made because of passion and a startup is made for profit. Only you think, oh, I'm going to make a bunch of money off of this. And the ones that really take off, at least according to her, are ones that are started with, mixed motivations. Wow, I think this is really interesting. And it has a lot of, profitability potentially. And they continue to fall in love with it as they develop it. So I think it's really situational. And I think you're totally right that it does sometimes work. But I think it's really dangerous. Like, just really quickly, like if you go to the gym and the first thing you do while you're there is like comparing and comparing, it's hard to get out of that trap for sure. Um, but it's definitely possible.
Gets
Yeah,
you there quicker, but can also destroy you if you don't jump off quick enough.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. Because if you go to the gym, you compare all the time, you could be the best shape ever, but then you'll get body dysmorphia.
Yeah. Perfect example. Yeah.
Yeah. How often do you think we should be reflecting and changing our goals? That's another thing that I've been thinking about recently is I'm a very goal-oriented person. Aiden Macheski opened me up to that, realizing that a little more. And I realize sometimes I feel like I look at my goals too much, which is,
Okay.
I think, the opposite of some people. I think it's important to have a lot of goals, but like sometimes I'm like, this is my goal. And then I sit down and I reflect too much. And then I'm like, oh, no, this is my goal. No, this is my goal. This is my goal. And sometimes I feel like I don't
Yeah.
give them enough time to like mature. What do you think about that? Do you change your goals a lot?
So, yes, definitely. I think my goals are maybe not uh altered on the daily, but certainly weekly. I think, you know, prime example is coming into the presidency of the fraternity. I found just like anyone really coming into a role like that, like you're extremely optimistic about how things could go. And sometimes your goals are unrealistic depending on your situation. And as time continues and as time changes, you have to continue to alter them to be the most efficient at achieving them. I think it depends on how general they are also. Like if my long-term goal is to make $1 million, like there's so many ways to go about that goal can kind of like sit there. But in my personal experience, general goals like that are not nearly as persuasive to me as, goals that are like, I'm going to have 4, brotherhood events in the fraternity this quarter, where it's like, this is a short span, like I'm going to do this. And then as time goes on, maybe, okay, schedules changed a little bit. We have some events. Like if I keep that 4, sure, I may be striving harder, but I might crash and burn harder later on because I'll be disappointed in the output, But if I'm given the opportunity to like change it, I think I work more efficiently.
Yeah.
That's a very convoluted way of saying.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. I think that what I've kind of come to is the longer the goal, like however far, like if there's a 3-month goal, 5-year goal, 10-year goal, like the longer the goal is, the more often I should be looking at it. Right. That's what I've come to of like, if I'm taking a 1-hour plane ride and we adjust by 1 degree, that's going to lead to you're going to be less off track than if I take a 10-hour plane ride and I go 1 degree off. Right.
Yeah.
Because it just kind of, keeps going. It's kind of exponential in that sense.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with all that of like, okay, if I have a 1-month goal, even if the goal's terrible and it's completely wrong, it's fine as long as my 10-year goal is right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think of the quote, like people, usually overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year.
Almost
Underestimate what they can
People
do.
usually overestimate what they can achieve in a year and underestimate what they can achieve in a decade.
Okay. Like off of that, as time progresses, you have to change your goals to fit, the time frame. As you go on, maybe within that decade you realize, wow, holy crap, or wow, dang it.
Yeah.
I've been moving, so much quicker than I expected in the last 5 years. I should change my goals. Keeping them low might hold you back, but on the daily, keeping them too high can also hold you back. I think being fluid and adaptable is a trait that benefits everything in your life, but particularly when it comes to achieving goals.
Yeah. I think a big piece of advice I would offer other peers too is go after your goals really fast, which might be stupid advice. But I found like if I have a thought and I have a goal, and if I go after it really fast, like the faster I achieve it, the faster I realize if it was the right goal or not.
Yeah.
Right. So like one of the goals, I've talked this before, like I want to go viral on TikTok and I went viral and it's like, I don't love it. Right. But if I was chasing that for a year, that would have sucked. I would have spent a year of my life doing that opposed to chasing it for like 2 months.
Yeah.
Right. Or like if my goal is one of my goals was like, okay, public speaking, I'll get paid to be a professional speaker. And I was like, I did it for 3 months. I was like, maybe not. Right. I actually enjoy the podcasting more. Right. And then like my whole thing is just taking things off the box of like, okay, what do I like? What do I not?
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm definitely a believer in chase, 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 because if it is the right thing, you get it sooner. And if it's not the right thing, you figure it out sooner. Both ways, time well saved for sure.